I'm Kevin Frankish. Thanks so much for joining me here on the Mental Health Podcast. Do you bite your nails? Do you bite the inside of your cheek? Do you pick at your skin? Do you pick your nose? These are all things a lot of people do, and sometimes they don't even hide that fact. I'll bite my nails sometimes in public before I even realize it. But there comes a time when they become a serious mental health issue. If they're drawing blood, if you're biting your nails and your cuticles are bleeding as a result, if it interferes with your daily life, with your relationships, with work or school, if it causes you emotional distress, that's when you have to do something about it. They're actually called BFRBs, body-focused repetitive behaviors. I'm going to be talking to one of North America's foremost experts on BFRBs. Her name is Dr. Suzanne Mouton-Odum, and she's going to be joining me from Houston. Beyond nail biting, right now on the Mental Health Podcast. Well, hi, Suzanne. Thanks so much for joining me. This is going to be a fascinating conversation.
I certainly hope so.
Well, I guess that's up to me. That I'm going to try and make it fascinating here. The very first thing is I had never, before I started researching for this episode, never really equated nail biting or cheek biting as being a significant mental health issue. I knew you did it because you were under anxiety or stress, but I never realized it could actually become a serious problem, couldn't it?
Absolutely. And when people engage in any behavior beyond the point where it is helpful or, where it works for them, whether it's functional, it can become a problem. It could be exercise. It could be eating. It could be drinking alcohol, and things that done in moderation are not a problem, but taken beyond are definitely a problem, if that makes sense.
Now, you left me wondering because just before we started recording, I had said that sort of same thing to you. I was saying, nail biting, it just seems to be something that I didn't really think was all that serious. But you said, actually, it goes far beyond that, and I'll tell you what that is. What were you talking about?
Well, and many people that treat these behaviors think about them as self-regulation. It's how we are keeping our bodies in balance, whether it's to reduce a negative sensation or emotion like anxiety or tension or frustration, or to increase a positive sensation or experience like satisfaction or excitement or happiness. And so we are constantly seeking regulation in our bodies. And for some reason, these behaviors really give that to people. They give them a sense of balance or a sense of homeostasis, which is fine unless the behavior is done to the point of causing problems, meaning damage to the body, damage to the tissue, or some sort of impairment in their functioning in the relationships, at work, etc., if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I'm wondering, and I'm a nail biter. I'm a nail biter. In fact, I'm going to show you my nails. All right, so here are my nails. Now, honestly, it goes right into the skin, into the cuticles, as you can see.
Yes. Yeah. So you're actually more of a cuticle biter than a nail biter.
Yes. And okay, now, is that common? And what does it say?
Well, it tells me that that's part of how you regulate your nervous system. So we would need to know more. When does it happen? Where are you? What time of day? Who's around? What activity are you engaged in? What's going on internally? Does it happen in certain environments more than others? What are the antecedents to that behavior? What are the consequences to that behavior? If I had to take a guess, I'd say maybe it's the way it feels or the way it looks. And so you'll feel something that's maybe rough or is, a hangnail or a split part, and you want to make it smooth. So you'll do something to smooth that out, in which case you have fixed it and in your mind, but really you've just actually caused damage. But so there are cognitive pieces to it, there are sensory pieces to it, there are emotional pieces to it. Like, yes, I got it, I did it. And so it's a more complicated and nuanced than people actually think about it.
So I have generalized anxiety disorder and I have severe depressive disorder. Is there a link there?
We do see an increased frequency of depression and anxiety in adults who pick and pull. So that is not uncommon. But they don't necessarily go hand in hand. We also see people that pick and pull who don't have other psychiatric disorders. And so we're also not sure if having a lifetime of dealing with a certain problem or a BFRB doesn't lead people to feel more anxious or more down on themselves. So it's kind of hard to know what the relationship is all about.
So BFRB, body focused repetitive behavior. So when we
Yes.
use the term BFRB, because it's not just nail biting, I've got this list here.
Correct.
I've got
Yes.
first of all, there's cheek biting, which I do. Skin biting, which I guess is kind of what you said that I do, not more nail biting. Of course, I do bite my nails too. People hair pulling, skin picking, tongue chewing. And these are all relatively common. Is this trying to tell us something?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think what it's telling us is human beings are complex and creative beings, and we are in the service of our self regulation. And that's what these behaviors are all about. And when we find something that works, we tend to do it, to relieve a sensation or to bring on a sensation. We tend to seek it. When people feel sick, and I'm curious if you relate to this, they pick and pull more. And parents are always mystified by this. But if you think about it, when we feel bad, we seek comfort. And so you'll see people engaging in these behaviors more when they have the flu. Well, sure, because they want to feel better. So there is a piece of this that is a feel better piece, if that makes sense. It's just that each person experiences maybe a little bit differently.
But I know it doesn't feel better. I know it gets to the point where it hurts, and it'll hurt for a few days. So why do I have this one sense on one side? This is going to feel better, and that's what I'm going to be doing. But on the other hand, it's like, no, I'm actually damaging myself and hurting myself.
Well, and that's where I think ambivalence really comes into play. And if you think about it, many behaviors that feel really good, we probably shouldn't do to excess. We can all think of whatever they are for us, whether it's having too much coffee or having an extra glass of wine or eating that dessert. Oftentimes the things that really feel good can hurt us. And so again, it's about finding a variety of things that feel good and that can help us regulate our bodies. Because if you are predisposed to this behavior, and we do believe there is a genetic predisposition, not everybody is predisposed to pull hair or pick skin. And we do see it kind of run in families. We haven't identified the exact genetic marker, but we're pretty sure it's there just because of the high family concordance rates. So part of the treatment is figuring out how this is serving a person and then finding other ways to get that need met so that a person will have a variety of options rather than just that one option.
Is this sort of like controlling what you can control, or controlling, because we always say that the way to defeat anxiety and stress is to sort of say, control what you can control and just live with the rest. But are we sort of trying to say, okay, I think I can control my body?
For some people, I think that may resonate. I imagine it doesn't resonate with everybody out there who picks and pulls. And this is what has traditionally been so complicated about treating people with BFRBs is just when you think you understand, someone will come along and say, no, that's not me at all. And so there's such a variety and heterogeneity among people with BFRBs that we've had to really take decades to unpack it. And I think we're getting really close to understanding sort of all of the different facets of these behaviors. And there's some papers that are going to be coming out in the near future that are going to explain a lot more of that. Um, if you think about it as self-regulation and that each person is approaching that in a little bit different way, it makes a lot of sense.
It sounds as though we need to study this more. Is this a relatively new field? Because it's an old habit. Is it a relatively new field that's gained some significance?
Well, and as you pointed out, this is something we've known about for forever, at least with the nail biting, and certainly pimple picking. That is something that people can relate to. But as far as, digging into one's skin or pulling one's hair out, I mean, certainly if I had a hair growing out of my chin, that's called grooming. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people that have removed whole sections of hair on their head or removed all of their eyelashes and eyebrows or, pubic hair, arm hair, leg hair, any hair on the body. Those are less talked about. And so I think more attention has been called to them thanks to the TLC Foundation for BFRBs over the last 30 years or so. But you're right, we need a lot more study on these disorders and what exactly are they, what parts of the brain are involved, what neurotransmitters are involved, and how can we be better at treating people who struggle with them.
Okay, I'm going to get gross here. Nose picking. Is nose picking a BFRB?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. And we see people that aren't just doing the traditional removal of mucus from the nose, but can really.
I like how you say that. How eloquent did you just say that? The removal of mucus from the nose, rather than nostril mining.
Exactly. This would be more really actually destruction of the membranes in the nasal passage, and it can get quite severe. And so, again, there is an array and a sort of spectrum of severity of these disorders. What you showed me on your cuticle picking is fairly mild. You may not think about it that way. It may seem moderate to severe to you because that's your experience. But from a professional who has seen this over many decades, we've seen people who have no fingernails that have really destroyed their cuticles to the point where their fingernails won't grow and their fingers are somewhat disfigured. And so these behaviors can get quite severe, and it can be not only damaging to the body, but can be life-threatening in certain cases.
Okay, so we try all sorts of things, and especially parents with their children. We buy the bad tasting polish that you can put on your fingers you get it at the drugstore, or we wrap up fingers especially. Do these work?
Again, they can absolutely work depending on a person's kind of a clinical presentation. So for example, if you were going to treat someone for alcohol addiction or alcohol abuse, you can take all of the alcohol out of the house. You can put that person in treatment for 8 weeks or 12 weeks, which would be the same sort of thing, making it difficult, putting things on their fingers to prevent them from sucking their thumb or biting their fingers. But are we teaching them what to do in those moments when they're needing that? So obviously, if someone's in treatment, they can't access alcohol. But if they leave treatment and they go into a bar that serves alcohol, do they have the skills that they need to manage that without relapse? And so what we're really trying to do is make it inconvenient and at the same time, depending on what a person is seeking in that moment, teach them the skills they need to address that need and to have a successful outcome rather than just ripping the things off the fingers and going for it, if that makes sense. Or washing the hands and getting all that stuff off.
Yeah, and a lot of times, and I want to talk about coping because a lot of times I will say to myself, all right, that's it. I am not biting my nails anymore, starting now. And then before you know it, you're biting your nails and you don't even realize it. what can we do? And whether it's nail biting, whether it's cheek biting or hair pulling, whatever, what can we do to set ourselves up for success?
Well, that's a great. So, what I would say to that person is say you bite your nails when you're watching football. It's very exciting, it's very, suspenseful. I would recommend to that person to wear gloves during a football game and see if they can keep them on. When do they come off? What is the brain saying? What is happening in the body in the moment the gloves come off and the hands go in the mouth? That's kind of that critical moment of what is my body needing right now? And is there another way I can get that need met? And that really is the key, is helping a person understand what that is. Or is it simply awareness? Is it simply, now, if I put gloves on someone and there really is nothing behind it, it's just an awareness thing, the gloves will work. They're aware, they're really not meeting a need. It's simply a habit, and they probably won't engage in the behavior. But if there's something else going on, which is oftentimes the case, the gloves will come off. But I want to know what's going on in that moment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you can stop the habit, but it's very important, I'm sure, to realize why you're doing it, because it may manifest itself, your anxiety or stress or whatever may manifest itself in a more severe way or in a different way. So you got to not just treat the symptoms, you got to treat the illness.
Correct. And the other thing I want to mention that I think is very important for BFRBs is that across the board, most everybody who struggles with an actual BFRB, meaning not just your occasional hair pull or your occasional biting of a nail, but when it really does impact them and cause a problem in their life, is shame. And you kind of described this in yourself, like, I know I don't want to do this, yet I still find myself doing it. Well, that alone is a very complicated situation. And when a person has received feedback over the years from their environment, from their parents, from kids growing up, from whomever in their life, or even their own critical inner self, chastising them, why do you do this? Why can't you stop? What's wrong with you? It really does foster a lot of negative emotion, negative self-talk, and shame. And in treatment, that's a huge part of what we're treating, is the negative self-appraisals that go with these behaviors. Because they are, quote, self-induced, there's this idea that you should just be able to stop. Well, stop it. Why do you keep doing it? You should stop. The kind of a blaming and negative. And what I tell people is, if this person could stop, they would have. You would have stopped biting your nails decades ago if it were that easy.
Yeah, and you're right. The shame is sometimes palpable, because if I'm sitting talking with someone, I'll cross my hands like this, so you don't see my nails, or I'll hide my nails so that people don't look down and notice it, because I'm ashamed of it. It's not because I think it's gross or anything. I do, but I'm ashamed of it that I do.
Right. Yeah, and so that's a big part of why people don't talk about these behaviors. It is the best kept secret. If really 2.5 to 5% of the population engages in a BFRB to a clinically significant degree, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And you don't hear about it. It's not talked about widely in society. And it's because of that. It's because I don't want to admit to myself or anyone else that I'm the one that removed my hair, that I'm the one that picks holes in my skin, that I'm the one that bites my fingernails to the point of bleeding. And so that's, awareness is an acceptance and normalizing. And I say that in a gentle way, because I don't want us to say normalize, it's no big deal. Normalize meaning can we talk about this in a compassionate and supportive way, and that these are not behaviors that we should blame people for. These are really nuanced and complicated behaviors, and they're not easy to change.
Is it something we should call someone on? Is it something we should sort of say, I notice you bite your nails? Because I know parents do with their kids. But with your partners or friends, is it something you should call someone on?
I think that's a hard question to answer. So I think that yes, sometimes if you're doing it in a supportive way and you're going to share your struggles or offer support, and if you're knowledgeable about it, which you are, and can explain these are normal behaviors, you're not alone, and can offer some alternatives or options or pathways out, I think that's great. But just calling someone to call them out, thinking that's going to be helpful, could be hurtful and could be shaming. That's sort of like saying to a smoker, hey, did you know that will kill you? Yes, of course they do. And that's not a helpful thing to say or do. Right. And so it has to be done in a way that's compassionate and offering some sort of assistance, I would say.
All right. So what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about these different BFRBs? Is it strictly mindfulness to do that, and we have to go see a therapist in order to have this happen properly, or what are some coping skills we can pass on?
These are great questions. They're great books out there. The TLC Foundation, the IOCDF, which is the International OCD Foundation, which has just absorbed the TLC Foundation in the last couple of weeks. That was announced, which means that BFRBs are now going to be recognized and helped on a much larger scale. So we're hoping to increase awareness, increase acceptance, and increase the path to healing for people. So I think the more it becomes a part of our conversation, a part of our cultural understanding is huge. The more compassion that we can have, the more people will come forward and say, yes, I struggle with this. Many people don't even know that they're not alone. So many people with BFRBs think no one else does this because not many people talk about it. Occasionally, there'll be a reference on television or in a book, and then it will have a little spike of awareness. But we're not, or there'll be, on the Today Show, or someone will talk about it and it will reach a segment of people. But those are few and far between. And thank you for having this podcast, because your podcast will reach a subset of people who will then have awareness. But and there are great books out there. There are workbooks out there. There are clinical handbooks out there. There are webinars out there. There are trainings for professionals out there. But really, what we need is for the general public to know I'm not alone. There are other people that do this, and there's treatment out there. Now, can I say, oh, just do this and it will help you? No, because each person comes to the table with their own unique set of triggers and antecedents and their own unique presentation. And so what I would ask people to do is to start to take notes and really notice, when does it happen? What makes it happen in one place or at one time? Like going to the bathroom, very common. People go to the bathroom, they get in front of the mirror, they're bright lights, they have a magnifying mirror, they're seeing all these things that they want to pick and pull. That is a common scenario. But why does it happen sometimes when you go in the bathroom and not others? And there'll be a whole answer there, right? And so what we want to understand is what increases someone's likelihood of engaging in the behavior, and then how can we then intervene to help them in those moments, if that makes sense. The way that we have it broken down, sensory, cognitive, affective, it's feeling things, looking at things. Like, I bet if one of your nails is a little bit longer than another one, that might be
Yes.
a reason to put it in your mouth. Versus how it feels, or if it's a jagged edge. Ooh, I don't like that. I better make it smooth. So there's sensory aspects to it. There are emotional aspects, and it's not just tension. It's not just nervousness or anxiety. It could be feeling bored. It could be needing to feel like I've accomplished something because, man, I got all my nails to be smooth. That was really an accomplishment. So it can increase a feeling of having gotten something done. There are also beliefs about it, like all my nails have to be a certain length for me to feel good about it. So we want to evaluate all of these areas and then use that as the basis of our intervention.
You know what's really interesting is that you're almost talking about this might be a gateway into finding out more about your own stresses and anxieties and how to actually deal with them. This might be a physical manifestation, a gateway to fixing yourself.
I think you are 100% right, because I think that BFRBs are one vehicle to self-regulation, but we all self-regulate in many ways, and some of them we do openly and some of them we do privately. And some of them are okay for us and some of them are really not okay in the end, but we still do it. And this is where the ambivalence comes in. And we all have done it. I mean, we've all put something in our mouth in our lifetimes that we knew we probably shouldn't be putting in our mouth, right? Have you ever done that?
Yes. Yeah,
Yes,
and I mean,
I did
do
it
all the
last
time.
night.
Well, when I'm
Yeah.
working, with tools or things like that, there's nothing to shoving a screwdriver in my mouth to hold on to it while I maneuver something. But yeah,
Well, I'm talking about having an extra dessert or that extra
oh
cookie,
yes, yeah, yeah.
or drinking an extra glass of wine when you know you shouldn't. Like, so in the moment when we're wanting something, it's really a lot harder. Like, we can have all the best intentions. It's like starting a new diet and exercise program, or quitting smoking, or quitting drinking, or cutting back. We have all these great ideas and we're motivated, but in the moment where we we cave, that's where it gets interesting, right? And that's where we learn a lot. So people see that as a failure, like, oh, I did it again. It's like, wait. There's so much to be learned in that moment
Yeah, I like
of
that.
what were you thinking? What were you experiencing? What was your body needing in that moment that made you break all the rules that you had set for yourself? So instead of seeing that as a failure, it's an opportunity to learn. And that's the moment we need to really focus on and lean into, rather than get mad at ourselves.
And I know that there's a lot of organizational changes going on, but the TLC Foundation is fantastic for BFRBs. So at this point, I'm hoping this website will remain through all the changes. BFRB.org has some great resources, but just simply Googling BFRB will bring you up all sorts of resources, because I think until now, most people listening didn't even know these were called BFRBs.
You're probably right. And many people that struggle with one probably don't even know that that's what they're called. So your podcast is amazing, and we need more people to spread the word to help people realize that they're not alone.
Yeah, and I mean that's the basic message about mental health in general, is always realizing you are not alone, because we feel that's one of the big problems with mental illness is we feel like we're in this room sitting all by ourselves and we're the only one who has a problem with this. So you are not alone, and that's if nothing else comes out of this, just simply knowing that is a good start.
Absolutely. And you're right. The BFRB.org, IOCDF.org, and Amazon.com. There's so many resources on there.
And books and it's wonderful to get the word out. And thank you very much for the work you do, because this is, it's a very, niche within mental illnesses. But as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking, wow, this, like you mentioned, the OCD, absorbing the TLC Foundation, but you know what? Is this OCD? I mean, is this a type of OCD?
It's a great question. It's considered a related disorder. So it's listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders as a OC-related disorder. It's more like a distant cousin. It is unique in many, many ways, because the biggest being it is more self-regulatory and has a positive aspect to it, whereas people that engage in OCD, they hate their rituals. They feel compelled to do them because they believe something bad will happen if they don't do them. That's completely different for BFRBs. People engage in BFRBs because there's some either negative reinforcement, which is the reducing of a negative, like reducing anxiety or stress or a bump, or it's increasing a positive, which is more positive reinforcement. Obviously, we're familiar with that. And so there is a very positive aspect to it, which makes it hard to get rid of. Like people with OCD are very glad to get rid of their rituals as long as the bad thing doesn't happen, if that makes sense.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this. It has been, I was right off the top, it has been absolutely fascinating. Still so much work to be done, but every journey of 1,000 miles starts with that first step. So if anybody can just recognize this in themselves, it's a good start. Thank you for this.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Many thanks to Dr. Mouton-Odum. If you want more information, the TLC Foundation is a great place to start. And all you do for that is go to bfrb.org, bfrb.org. Thanks so much for joining me here on the Mental Health Podcast. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other.